Hey guys, tonight we begin with something a little darker. A time of plagues, punishments, and pottage. We're diving into what life was really like during the Middle Ages. The truth, you probably wouldn't last a single day. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. Welcome to a journey back through time. Tonight, we travel to the year 1325, deep in the heart of medieval Europe. Stories and legends often paint this era as a golden age of knights in shining armor, grand castles on the hills, and noble quests for honor. But the truth? The truth was far darker. Life in medieval Europe was harsh, filthy, and unforgiving. Every day began with uncertainty, and every night ended with fear. People woke up not knowing if hunger, disease, or sudden violence might take them before the sun went down. The peasants, the backbone of society, lived their entire lives bound to the land. From the first light of dawn until the last trace of daylight, they worked the soil. Food was scarce, and what little they had was dull and repetitive. Winters brought hunger, summers brought droughts, and every season carried its own kind of suffering. But starvation was not their only enemy. Filth and disease were everywhere. The streets overflowed with waste. Homes were cramped, damp, and suffocating. With no real sanitation, illness spread like wildfire. Plague, fevers, and infections haunted every village. Parasites thrived. Lice, fleas, and worms were constant companions. People accepted them as part of daily life. Cleanliness was rare, bathing almost unheard of. Once, maybe twice a year, if at all. Imagine the stench, the constant itching, the feeling that your body was never your own. And then, there was the church. More than a place of worship, it was a force of power and control. The fear of eternal damnation kept people obedient. To disobey the church was to risk punishment in this life and eternal fire in the next. And yet, through all of this suffering, the human spirit endured. People still found ways to celebrate. Festivals, songs, dances in the village square, or prayers whispered by candlelight. Moments of joy that broke through the darkness. A child's laughter, echoing down a muddy lane. A family huddled close, sharing a crust of bread. A farmer singing beneath the stars after a long day in the fields. These fragile moments reminded them that life, however short, still held meaning. This was Europe in 1325, a world of hunger, disease, and fear, a world where life was short, suffering was constant, but resilience was unshakable. And in the face of death, people still found ways to live, to hope, and to smile. Now our journey shifts from the muddy streets of medieval Europe to the glittering courts of 18th century Russia. Here, we meet a young woman named Sophie of Anhalt-Zerbst, a minor German princess with little wealth, little power, and almost no prospects. And yet, fate had something extraordinary in store for her. At just 14, Sophie was sent to Russia, chosen as a bride for the young Grand Duke Peter, heir to the Russian throne. She was a foreigner in every sense. She barely spoke the language. She struggled with the culture, and she entered a court filled with suspicion, whispers, and danger. But Sophie was ambitious. She studied Russian history, learned the Orthodox faith, and mastered the language. She reinvented herself, adopting a new name that would echo through history, Catherine. Her marriage, however, was far from a fairy tale. Peter was unstable, cruel, and uninterested in his wife. Their union was filled with tension, neglect, and humiliation. But Catherine endured. She played the part of the loyal duchess, while carefully building alliances with nobles, guards, and advisors. And then, in 1762, the moment came. Peter ascended the throne. His erratic behavior quickly alienated the military and the nobility. Within months, Catherine made her move. With the support of the guards and key allies, she led a bloodless coup. Peter was arrested, and Catherine became Empress of Russia. Her reign would last more than 3 decades, a reign defined by brilliance, contradictions, and power. Catherine embraced the ideals of the Enlightenment. She corresponded with philosophers like Voltaire and Diderot. She reformed laws, encouraged education, and expanded the arts. She dreamed of modernizing Russia, bringing it closer to Europe. Yet, for all her ideals, Catherine was also pragmatic. She strengthened the grip of the nobility, and she upheld serfdom, binding millions of peasants to the land. Reform was balanced with caution, progress tempered by the need to keep power secure. Under her rule, Russia expanded its borders dramatically. Victories against the Ottoman Empire, the partitioning of Poland, and new access to the Black Sea turned Russia into a true European power. But Catherine's personal life was just as famous as her politics. She had lovers, confidants, and scandals that fueled gossip across Europe. Her court was both a center of intrigue and a stage where Catherine's charisma shone. History remembers her as Catherine the Great, not just for her victories, not just for her reforms, but for her ability to navigate the brutal, treacherous world of power. She was a visionary, a survivor, and a ruler who transformed Russia forever. Now, we travel far across time and space, from the grandeur of Russian courts to the dense jungles of ancient Mesoamerica. Here lies the city of Palenque, a Maya metropolis that flourished over 1,000 years ago. It is a world of stone temples, carved hieroglyphs, and sacred rituals. Among its greatest discoveries is the tomb of the Red Queen, an ancient royal woman whose final resting place remained untouched for centuries. When archaeologists uncovered her tomb, they found a treasure unlike any other: jade, ceramics, intricately carved masks, and red cinnabar powder covering her entire body. The Red Queen's tomb tells a story of power, spirituality, and ritual. Her burial was not mere ceremony, it was a transformation. In Maya cosmology, death was not the end, but a passage to another realm. The red powder symbolized life, blood, and the sacred journey into the afterlife. Historians believe she was likely the consort of Pal the Great, one of Palenque's most influential rulers. Yet, her tomb reminds us that women in Maya society were far from passive. They ruled, they advised, they performed rituals, and they were revered as guardians of spiritual and political power. Through the Red Queen, we glimpse a civilization where women held authority alongside men, shaping dynasties, performing sacred rites, and maintaining cosmic balance. Her elaborate burial reflects a culture that honored both life and death, and recognized the profound importance of royal women in society. Standing before her tomb, one can almost hear the whispers of the past, the chants of priests, the rituals of kings and queens, and the enduring legacy of a woman whose life and death still speaks to the power of history, ritual, and belief. Finally, we arrive in the vibrant world of 20th century Mexico, to a woman whose life and art continue to inspire the world, Frida Kahlo. Frida's story begins with struggle. As a child, she suffered from polio, leaving her with a lifelong limp. But nothing could have prepared her for the accident that would define her art and identity. At 18, a bus collided violently with a streetcar, leaving her with multiple fractures, a broken spine, and a lifetime of pain. Confined to bed, and later to her wheelchair, Frida turned to painting. Her canvases became mirrors of her body, her emotions, and her soul. She painted her pain, her love, her politics, and her Mexican heritage. Each brushstroke was raw, honest, and unflinching. Frida's life was as tumultuous as her art. Her marriage to Diego Rivera was passionate, complex, and often fraught with betrayal. Yet their love also fueled creative collaboration, and Frida's artistic voice only grew stronger. She embraced her identity fully, defying societal norms as a woman, a feminist, and a queer artist. Her work was revolutionary, merging surrealism with reality, personal trauma with political commentary. She celebrated Mexican culture, indigenous heritage, and the female experience in ways no one had before. Frida Kahlo's legacy is eternal. She transformed suffering into beauty, pain into empowerment, and individuality into inspiration. Through her art, her life, and her indomitable spirit, Frida continues to challenge conventions, redefine identity, and remind us that resilience and creativity can thrive even in the harshest circumstances. Now, let us journey back more than 2,000 years to the golden sands and mighty temples of ancient Egypt. Here, on the banks of the Nile, ruled a woman whose name has echoed through history, Cleopatra VII, the last pharaoh of Egypt. Cleopatra was not only a queen, but a master strategist, diplomat, and intellectual. She spoke multiple languages, studied philosophy and science, and wielded her charm as skillfully as her political power. In a world dominated by men, she stood as a ruler in her own right, commanding armies and forging alliances. Her reign was marked by political turmoil, as Rome grew in strength and sought control over Egypt's wealth. Cleopatra, however, was not easily subdued. Her legendary alliances with Julius Caesar and later Mark Antony were not merely romances, but powerful political partnerships designed to protect her throne and her people. Cleopatra understood symbolism. She presented herself as the goddess Isis reborn, embodying divine power and national pride. To her people, she was more than a queen. She was Egypt itself, the living link between the gods and humanity. Her story, though glorious, ended in tragedy. Defeated by Rome, facing the loss of her kingdom, Cleopatra chose death over surrender. According to legend, she held a serpent to her breast, ending her life in defiance and dignity. Cleopatra's legacy is eternal. She remains a symbol of intelligence, resilience, and feminine power. Her life reminds us that true strength is not just in armies or empires, but in the ability to command respect, shape destiny, and leave behind a legend that the world will never forget. From the palaces of Egypt, we now journey to 19th century America, where one woman's courage reshaped the fight for freedom. Her name was Harriet Tubman, and history remembers her as the Moses of her people. Harriet was born into slavery, enduring cruelty, hard labor, and the constant fear of being torn from her family. Yet, within her burned a spirit of defiance, a belief that no human being should be chained. When the moment came, she seized her chance for liberty, escaping the South through secret routes and hidden allies known as the Underground Railroad. But Harriet's story did not end with her own freedom. She returned time and again, risking capture and death, to lead others out of bondage. Armed with courage and unwavering faith, she guided men, women, and children through swamps, forests, and darkness, northward to liberty. She was more than a guide. She was a strategist. Harriet carried a pistol, not only to protect her people from slave catchers, but to keep fugitives from turning back in fear. Her determination was absolute. Once you set foot on the path to freedom, there was no return. During the Civil War, she worked as a nurse, a spy, and even led a military raid that freed over 700 enslaved people in a single night. Few women in history have ever wielded such bravery on the battlefield of justice. Harriet Tubman lived a long life, passing away in 1913 at the age of 90. She died a free woman, surrounded by those she had saved, her legacy etched into the very soul of America. Harriet Tubman's life was a testament to courage, sacrifice, and hope. She proved that even in the darkest times, a single voice, armed with faith and determination, can lead a people from bondage to freedom, and from despair to destiny. In the heart of medieval France, amid war, chaos, and despair, arose a figure so unlikely, so extraordinary, that her story still echoes across the centuries. She was a peasant girl named Joan, born in a small village, destined for obscurity. Yet she became the Maid of Orleans, the warrior saint who carried the hopes of a nation on her shoulders. Joan of Arc grew up in a time when France was fractured and weary, beaten down by the 100 Years' War. At only 13, she began to hear what she believed were divine voices, angels and saints, calling her to lead France to victory. To most, such a claim from a teenage girl was madness, but Joan's conviction was unshakable. She journeyed to the court of the Dauphin, the uncrowned king, and persuaded him to give her command. Clad in armor, carrying a banner of white and gold, Joan rode at the head of armies. She was not a trained soldier, but her faith, courage, and sheer determination ignited those around her. At Orleans, the tide of war turned. Under her leadership, French troops stormed fortifications, and victory electrified the nation. Joan became a symbol of divine favor, the living embodiment of hope. But triumph carried a heavy cost. Captured by enemy forces, she was handed over to the Inquisition. Accused of heresy, witchcraft, and defying the order of men, Joan was condemned. At just 19 years old, she was burned at the stake, her cries rising with the smoke into the sky of Rouen. Yet death did not silence her. Joan of Arc became immortal, a saint, a heroine, and an icon of courage. Centuries later, she would be canonized by the church that once condemned her. Her story reminds us that greatness can emerge from the most unexpected places, and that faith, whether in God, in justice, or in oneself, can inspire ordinary people to change the course of history. In 17th century Central Africa, when European empires sought to conquer and enslave, one woman stood as a force of defiance. Her name was Nzinga, Queen of Ndongo and Matamba. To her people, she was more than a ruler. She was a shield, a strategist, and a warrior who refused to bow to foreign chains. Nzinga was born into royalty, raised in a world of diplomacy and war. From a young age, she displayed extraordinary intelligence and boldness, mastering languages, politics, and the art of battle. When the Portuguese pressed deeper into her homeland, seeking slaves and territory, Nzinga met them not with submission, but with cunning. In one famous encounter, she arrived at negotiations with Portuguese officials. Denied a chair, she ordered one of her servants to kneel and sat proudly on his back, eye to eye with the colonial governor. That image became a symbol of her defiance. Nzinga would never be beneath anyone. For decades, she resisted European encroachment. She forged alliances with rival tribes, embraced guerrilla tactics, and even restructured her kingdom to protect her people. Where others fell, Nzinga endured, adapting with brilliance. Her reign was not only about war, but survival. She welcomed runaway slaves, offered them freedom, and built a society where unity was stronger than fear. Though her life was forged in conflict, Nzinga's vision stretched beyond resistance. She sought sovereignty, dignity, and independence for her people. Queen Nzinga lived nearly to the age of 80, a rare triumph in such turbulent times. Even in her final years, she remained unyielding, commanding respect from allies and enemies alike. Her story endures as a testament to resistance against oppression, and as proof that women, even in the most brutal of centuries, could rise as leaders of nations. Nzinga of Ndongo and Matamba will forever be remembered as Africa's warrior queen, unyielding, unbroken, and unforgettable. In the laboratories of 19th and early 20th century Europe, a woman emerged whose discoveries would alter the very fabric of science. Her name was Marie Curie, and she became the first woman to win a Nobel Prize, and the only person ever to win Nobel Prizes in 2 different sciences. Born Maria Skłodowska in Warsaw, Poland, Curie grew up under foreign rule, where opportunities for women in higher education were scarce. Yet her mind was restless, her determination unshakable. She moved to Paris, where she studied physics and mathematics at the Sorbonne, often working late into the night, hungry, cold, but relentless in pursuit of knowledge. It was in Paris that she met Pierre Curie, a fellow scientist and kindred spirit. Together, they embarked on groundbreaking research that led to the discovery of 2 new elements, polonium and radium, Their work opened the mysterious world of radioactivity, a term Marie herself coined. The labor was grueling. Hours upon hours in makeshift laboratories, stirring cauldrons of pitch blende, sifting through tons of ore to isolate minute traces of glowing material. But their perseverance paid off. In 1903, Marie and Pierre Curie were awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics. After Pierre's tragic death in 1906, Marie pressed on alone, refusing to let grief extinguish her work. In 1911, she won her second Nobel Prize, this time in chemistry, for her discoveries of radium and polonium. She became a global icon of science, though she faced fierce criticism and prejudice as a woman in a male-dominated world. During World War I, she developed mobile X-ray units, bringing life-saving technology to battlefields and treating countless soldiers. Her contributions extended far beyond theory. They saved lives in real time. Marie Curie's work would ultimately take her life. Years of exposure to radiation caused illness that claimed her in 1934. Yet her legacy lives on in modern medicine, nuclear physics, and the countless women in science she inspired. Marie Curie was not simply a scientist. She was a pioneer, a trailblazer, a woman who changed the way humanity sees the invisible forces of nature. Her brilliance continues to shine, a light in the world of discovery and progress. Long before Cleopatra, there was another extraordinary woman who ruled Egypt with wisdom and authority. Hatshepsut, the female pharaoh who defied tradition and reshaped her kingdom. Hatshepsut was born into the royal line, but as a woman, she was not expected to rule. Yet, following the death of her husband and the young age of her stepson Thutmose III, Hatshepsut assumed the throne, declaring herself pharaoh. She adopted the full regalia and titles of kings, even wearing a false beard as a symbol of authority. Her reign was marked by peace, prosperity, and unprecedented building projects. Hatshepsut commissioned magnificent temples, including her iconic mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahri, carved into cliffs along the Nile. She encouraged trade missions, expanding Egypt's wealth and forging ties with distant lands, bringing back exotic goods that dazzled the kingdom. Hatshepsut ruled with intelligence and vision, balancing respect for tradition with bold innovation. She understood the power of images and inscriptions, presenting herself as a divine ruler chosen by the gods and leaving a legacy that would endure for millennia. Though later pharaohs attempted to erase her name from history, Hatshepsut's monuments, temples, and achievements could not be hidden. Her story reminds us that leadership is not determined by gender, but by courage, vision, and the ability to shape a nation. Hatshepsut remains one of Egypt's most remarkable rulers, a woman who rose above expectation and carved her name into history with the strength and brilliance of a true pharaoh. Now, we travel to the grandeur of Tang Dynasty China, to a woman whose name still resonates in the annals of history, Wu Zetian, the only woman to ever rule as emperor in Chinese history. Born into a noble family, Wu Zetian entered the imperial court as a concubine of Emperor Taizong. She was intelligent, ambitious, and unafraid to challenge the strict hierarchies of the palace. Over time, she navigated court politics with unparalleled skill, gradually rising through the ranks outmaneuvering rivals and consolidating her influence. When Emperor Gaozong ascended the throne, Wu Zetian became empress consort. Yet, she did not stop there. Through shrewd alliances, political maneuvering, and unwavering determination, she positioned herself to rule not just alongside the emperor, but ultimately as the sovereign of China herself. Wu Zetian's reign was revolutionary. She promoted capable officials regardless of their social status, encouraged the spread of Buddhism, and implemented reforms that strengthened the central government. She was both feared and respected, known for her ruthlessness as well as her vision. Her ascent challenged centuries of patriarchal norms. She ruled with intelligence, authority, and strategic brilliance, proving that a woman could wield power as effectively, and sometimes more decisively, than any man. Empress Wu Zetian's legacy endures as a testament to ambition, intellect, and resilience. Her story reminds us that history is shaped not only by circumstance, but by those courageous enough to redefine what is possible. From the ancient courts of China, we now cross the ocean to 20th century America, to a quiet seamstress whose simple act of courage ignited a movement that changed a nation. Her name was Rosa Parks. Rosa was born in 1913 in Tuskegee, Alabama, and grew up facing the harsh realities of segregation, discrimination, and systemic oppression. From a young age, she understood the injustice around her, but also the power of quiet dignity and determination. On December 1st, 1955, in Montgomery, Alabama, Rosa made a decision that would forever alter history. She refused to give up her seat to a white passenger on a city bus. It was not the first time she had defied segregation laws, but it was the act that sparked a citywide boycott and ignited the civil rights movement. Rosa Parks' courage was not born from anger alone, but from a deep sense of justice, self-respect, and moral clarity. Her steadfastness inspired leaders, including Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and mobilized thousands of African Americans to demand equality. Her refusal to yield was more than a personal act. It became a symbol of collective resistance. The Montgomery bus boycott lasted 381 days, testing patience, resolve, and faith. Yet, Rosa's quiet bravery and unwavering conviction played a pivotal role in dismantling systemic injustice. Rosa Parks lived a life of service, advocacy, and dignity, continuing to work for justice until her passing in 2005. Her legacy is eternal, a reminder that courage is often found in ordinary individuals, and that a single act of defiance can spark a revolution that reshapes a nation. From the streets of Montgomery, we now travel back over 2,000 years to the sunlit islands of ancient Greece, where a woman named Sappho gave voice to the deepest human emotions and transformed the art of poetry. Sappho was born on the island of Lesbos around 630 BCE, in a society where women's voices were often silenced. Yet she emerged as one of the most celebrated lyric poets of her time. Her verses explored love, desire, longing, friendship, and the beauty of the natural world, capturing the human heart with intimacy and elegance. Sappho taught and inspired others through her poetic school, nurturing young women in the arts of poetry, music, and expression. Her words were not merely entertainment. They were windows into the soul, bridging emotion, intellect, and culture. Though much of her work survives only in fragments, Sappho's influence resonates across millennia. Ancient Greeks revered her as a divine poetess. Her poetry was sung and cherished, and her name became synonymous with passionate lyricism. Her life and art remind us that even in societies that constrain women, creativity and expression can flourish. Sappho's verses endure as a testament to the power of language, the beauty of feeling, and the courage to speak one's heart across time. From the islands of ancient Greece, we return to 19th century America, to a woman whose voice echoed across generations, Sojourner Truth. Born into slavery as Isabella Baumfree in 1797, she endured the cruelty, hardship, and injustice that shackled millions of African Americans. Yet her spirit remained unbroken. Escaping bondage in 1826, Sojourner devoted her life to justice, equality, and faith. She became a powerful speaker, traveling across the country to advocate for the abolition of slavery and the rights of women. Her words were sharp, compelling, and filled with moral authority, cutting through indifference and inspiring action. Truth's most famous speech, "Ain't I a Woman?", delivered at the Women's Rights Convention in 1851, challenged prevailing notions of gender and race, asserting that women, regardless of color, deserved respect, opportunity, and recognition. Her courage and eloquence gave voice to the marginalized, and her presence demanded change. Beyond the stage, Sojourner fought for practical justice, helping freed slaves find homes and work, lobbying for legislation, and serving as a mentor to younger activists. She demonstrated that freedom was not only a personal triumph, but a collective responsibility. Sojourner Truth lived to see many victories of her era, yet she never ceased to call for deeper justice. Her legacy is a testament to courage, resilience, and the transformative power of words. She reminds us that even in the darkest chains, a single voice, lifted with conviction, can ignite the fires of liberation and equality. From the fight for freedom in America, we sail back to 16th century England, to a queen whose name would become synonymous with strength, wit, and an era of unparalleled cultural flourishing. Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen. Born in 1533 to King Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn, Elizabeth's early life was marked by danger, betrayal, and uncertainty. Her mother was executed, and Elizabeth herself faced imprisonment and suspicion throughout her youth. Yet she survived, learning politics, diplomacy, and the art of courtly influence. Ascending the throne in 1558, Elizabeth inherited a kingdom threatened by foreign powers, religious turmoil, and internal unrest. She ruled with intelligence, carefully balancing Protestant and Catholic factions, navigating threats from powerful monarchs across Europe, and establishing England as a force to be reckoned with. Elizabeth's reign, known as the Elizabethan era, saw the flowering of arts, literature, and exploration. Poets like Shakespeare, playwrights, and explorers ventured into uncharted lands, fueled by her patronage and vision. She understood the power of image and ceremony, crafting her persona as a wise, unyielding, and sometimes mysterious sovereign. Though she never married, Elizabeth's diplomacy and strategic alliances ensured her independence and authority. She led England through the defeat of the Spanish Armada, proving that her leadership could rival any king or emperor. Queen Elizabeth I's legacy endures as a testament to intelligence, resilience, and the power of self-determination. She ruled not only with authority, but with vision, leaving behind an era of cultural and political triumph that continues to inspire the world. From the splendor of Tudor England, we now journey to the mountains of Pakistan, to a young girl whose courage would inspire the world, Malala Yousafzai. Born in 1997 in the Swat Valley, Malala grew up in a society where education for girls was under constant threat. Yet she loved learning, attending school with a passion that would soon become a beacon for others. When the Taliban seized control of her region, Malala refused to remain silent. She spoke out, writing blogs and giving interviews, advocating for every girl's right to learn. Her words were powerful, fearless, and resolute, challenging a regime that sought to silence her and countless others. In 2012, a violent attack on her life by the Taliban drew global attention. But even in the face of danger, Malala's resolve only strengthened. She continued her education, recovered, and became an international symbol of courage and advocacy. Malala's work extends beyond her own story. She co-founded the Malala Fund, supporting girls' education worldwide, lobbying world leaders, and speaking before the United Nations. Her belief is simple yet profound. Education is the key to equality, peace, and opportunity. Malala Yousafzai's journey reminds us that even the youngest voices can spark monumental change. Courage, determination, and conviction can overcome oppression, and one girl's bravery can inspire millions to rise, speak, and act. From the mountains of Pakistan, we travel to the Renaissance of Italy, to a man whose curiosity, creativity, and intellect transformed art, science, and the very way we perceive the world, Leonardo da Vinci. Born in 1452 in Vinci, Italy, Leonardo was fascinated by everything: nature, anatomy, engineering, and the human mind. Unlike many of his contemporaries, he refused to be confined to a single discipline, becoming the embodiment of the Renaissance ideal, a polymath. Leonardo painted masterpieces that continue to captivate the world. The enigmatic smile of the Mona Lisa, the profound beauty of the Last Supper, works that merged technical precision with deep human insight. Yet his notebooks reveal another side: a relentless inventor, scientist, and visionary, sketching flying machines, armored vehicles, and intricate studies of the human body long before modern science could realize them. His genius lay not only in imagination, but in observation. Leonardo meticulously recorded nature, anatomy, and mechanics, seeking understanding through seeing, questioning, and experimentation. He believed knowledge was interconnected, that art and science were two sides of the same coin. Though many of his inventions remained unrealized in his lifetime, Leonardo's legacy is eternal. He reminds us that curiosity, creativity, and relentless pursuit of knowledge can transcend centuries, inspiring generations to see the world not as it is, but as it could be. From the brilliance of the Renaissance, we return to the United States, to a woman whose courage and determination helped hundreds escape the chains of slavery, Harriet Tubman. Born into slavery around 1822 in Maryland, Harriet endured hardship from her earliest days. She witnessed brutality, injustice, and the constant threat of violence. Yet even in her youth, she displayed remarkable resilience and resourcefulness. In 1849, Harriet escaped slavery herself, navigating dangerous terrain and hostile territory to reach freedom in the North. But her freedom was not enough. She could not ignore the suffering of others. Harriet returned to the South repeatedly, risking her life to lead enslaved people to liberty through the Underground Railroad. Her missions were perilous: treacherous rivers, secret codes, and hidden routes. But Harriet's courage and ingenuity saved countless lives. She earned the nickname Moses for guiding her people to freedom, relying on her intelligence, knowledge of the land, and unwavering determination. During the Civil War, Harriet served as a scout, spy, and nurse for the Union Army, further demonstrating her commitment to justice and liberation. Her life was a testament to courage, leadership, and selfless action. Harriet Tubman's legacy endures as a symbol of resilience and moral courage. She reminds us that true freedom is not simply the absence of chains, but the willingness to act for justice, even when the risk is great and the odds are daunting. From the courageous escapes of Harriet Tubman, we turn to the skies of Renaissance Italy, where one man's curiosity and intellect would challenge the heavens themselves: Galileo Galilei. Born in 1564 in Pisa, Italy, Galileo displayed an insatiable curiosity from a young age. Fascinated by mathematics, physics, and astronomy, he refused to accept conventional wisdom without observation and proof. His inquisitive mind would forever alter our understanding of the universe. Galileo's most groundbreaking work involved the telescope, an invention that allowed him to observe celestial bodies in unprecedented detail. He discovered Jupiter's moons, the phases of Venus, sunspots, and the rugged terrain of the moon. These observations challenged the prevailing geocentric model of the cosmos and supported the revolutionary heliocentric theory. Yet Galileo's discoveries did not come without risk. His advocacy for the truth of the heavens brought him into conflict with the Catholic Church, which upheld the traditional understanding of the universe. He faced trial, condemnation, and house arrest, yet he never renounced his findings. Galileo's life demonstrates the power of curiosity, courage, and reason. His work laid the foundation for modern physics, astronomy, and scientific inquiry, proving that observation and evidence must guide understanding even in the face of fear and opposition. Galileo Galilei remains a symbol of intellectual bravery, a man who dared to question the heavens and changed humanity's view of its place in the universe forever. From the stars observed by Galileo, we return to the forests of Africa, where a woman would dedicate her life to understanding and protecting one of our closest relatives, Jane Goodall. Born in 1934 in London, England, Jane was fascinated by animals from an early age. Imagining herself exploring the wilderness and observing wildlife. Her curiosity and compassion shaped a path that would forever change how humans relate to animals and nature. In 1960, Jane traveled to Gombe Stream National Park in Tanzania, beginning her pioneering study of chimpanzees. With patience, observation, and empathy, she documented behaviors previously thought exclusive to humans: tool use, social bonds, hunting strategies, and emotional expressions. Her groundbreaking research challenged scientific assumptions and revealed the intelligence, emotion, and complexity of chimpanzees. Jane faced skepticism and prejudice as a young woman in a male-dominated field, yet her determination and love for her subjects earned her respect and recognition. She combined rigorous science with heartfelt advocacy, highlighting the importance of conservation and environmental stewardship. Beyond research, Jane Goodall became a global ambassador for wildlife, founding the Jane Goodall Institute and inspiring generations to protect nature and act with compassion. Her life shows that observation, patience, and dedication can bridge worlds, creating understanding and change. Jane Goodall's legacy reminds us that empathy, curiosity, and courage can reshape our world. By listening to the voices of the forests and the creatures within, she taught humanity to value and protect the fragile beauty of life on Earth.